Hello and welcome to my series of learning Golang for beginners. Today we are going to go through an exercise, a very simple exercise, to read and write files with the ioutil library or ioutil package. The goal is to read a JSON structure from the local drive, turn the JSON into a Go struct, populate the property of the struct with some data read from some other files, and then to write the whole result into another file on the drive. So this would be just making use of a few Golang packages to achieve some simple scenarios. And I've set up the project in such a way that you have a data.json file, which is simply a structure of data objects, JSON objects, okay? In this data property, so we have a name property and we have a data property, which is an array of JSON objects. And these objects have three properties. What we are going to do is we are going to read this array, this whole structure, we are going to read into a Go struct type. We are going to add another property. So the end result will look like content something, right? And we add this to all the sub-objects. So let's do this simple exercise. The content that we will add in the other property is going to be fetched from these files. I have file 1, file 2, file 3, and it's just some random text inside. So we are going to read that text into another property of these objects. Okay, so as usual, we're going to start with a main.go file. So let's do this. Touch main.go. Here we have the main.go file. Every Golang file begins with declaring the package. So we are going to have package main. Now we are going to declare the entry point into our program, which is func main. And basically what we want here is to parse this JSON file into a Go struct type. So we can actually even start by defining a struct type which will reflect these properties here. Title, link, description, right? So we are going to declare type data struct, right? And we are going to say title, link, description. We are going to add these as properties. So we are going to say title string, link string, description string, right? There's a we should comment this data structure. Yeah, and now we want to read the JSON structure from the local drive. So we will have a, let's say, we will need to call here a function called get data or something. Right, so let's make this function. Get data. What does it return? It returns basically the whole structure here. So it returns a data object. A data struct, excuse me. No, it's not good. This data property is actually an array of such objects. So what we need to do is we need to create a holder, let's say a container for this, let's say type data container struct, and this will hold what does this hold? It holds a name and data properties. So it has name, string, and data, which is an array of, which will be an array of these objects, which we have called data, right? So now we refer to this type here. This will be an array of these struct. So, and this will have to be an array of pointers of such type. And why that is, we will see a bit later. Okay. So, now of course, we need to also comment this. So what we have now is something that reflects precisely the JSON file. So we have a data container which has name and an array of data struct types. Right. So now what we do, so what this does return is it returns a data container, right? Because it returns everything. So what we will have to do now, we will simply have to read from the drive. So we need to read this JSON file. So we are going to do that simply by calling a inbuilt function from the ioutil package. So we are going to say ioutil dot read file, right? And when we save, this will be imported. When we save the file, this package will be imported, and we will just need to pass in the file name, and the file name is location on drive. So this location is, we have a data folder, so we just need to say data, and then we have the data.json. Okay, something is wrong, it doesn't like it. More than one character in rune literal. No, this is not a rune. This is a string. Okay, this is not JavaScript, so we need to actually say double quotes, not single quotes. Yeah. Okay, so now what this returns is a byte array with the output, with the result of the reading operation, and an error if there was any. So we will say, as we know, in Golang we can return two parameters. So we will simply say result and error is this, right? So result will be the byte array. We don't need to declare these types because they are inferred from read file, right? And error is of error type, right? So we can now say, we could just skip the error, but for the purpose of best practices, we should check if there is an error. So if error exists, then we need to, we should print it, and then we should exit the program, because that's what we care about, reading the file. If we cannot read the file, the program doesn't make much sense. So we can say format.println error dot error, and then we can just say OS exit with a non-zero value. So non-zero value means something failed, right? As we can see, when we typed OS, we also imported the OS package, and when we typed fmt.println, this also imported the fmt package. Now you could say this construct, or you can just replace these both lines can be simplified as log.fatal err.error. And so what this does, this one line is the equivalent of these two. Why? Because, so again, what we want to do is to print the error and exit the program. So what this does is, this is equivalent to printing followed by a call to OS that exit with value of 1. So this is what we can do here. What we do now is we are going to, so now we have this byte array, right? So what we need to do is to turn this byte array into a data container type, right? How do we do that? Well, we know that the contents is JSON. We need to unmarshal JSON.unmarshal, and here we pass, let's save this. I'm just saving the file so I can see the IntelliSense. So unmarshal needs as parameters the actual data, which in our case is res, and it needs a interface and stores the result in the value pointed to by v. So this second should be a pointer. We need to create let's say a holder of this type, of this destination type, right? Var data container is of type data container, right? So now what we need to do is we need to pass address of data container, right? So then we will get the unmarshalling response into this variable. So what does this return? This returns an error if there was one. So we can just say, you know, whatever, err error JSON err equals this, right? So if jerr exists, then you know, then we just do this exact same as here. We just say log.fatal log.fatal jerr.error, right? Yeah, and what does this complain here about? Missing return. Yeah, of course. So we need to return the data container. So what we do is we read from the file. We create let's say data holder, so to speak. And in this holder, we place the result of the unmarshalling, the JSON unmarshalling. And so now we just need to return data container, right? So this will be the function which fetches the whole contents of this JSON file and puts it into a data container struct type. So what we can do is we can say get data, which is now recognized as being this function. We can just say get data. You know what? This is a bit cluttered here. Why don't we just move these? We should make a touch data.go and just say, just move these here so that it's well, there's a complaint here. Expected, yeah, at the beginning of each Golang file, you need to see the package. So this will be the package main. So now we have moved those types there. Right, so now we have moved the types there. So they are still, as you can see, when I hover, they are still recognized. Why is that? It's because they belong to the same package, right? So if I go in this file, I have declared my struct types in the exact same package. So it doesn't matter that it's in a different file as long as it's in the same package. Yeah, so now we have this get data. Now we need to do something with, let's say, data container equals get data, right? So this would be, yeah, data container declared but not used. You know, let's see what happens. So if t.println data container, let's see what we got. So just for the fun of it, like even to check if this function works. Yeah, so we need to say go run. Now I can say here, I can say go run main.go, yeah, but I have multiple files here. I should say go run main.go space data.go. But what happens if you have like 10 Go files? So you can just say everything.go. So, but how do I print the content? So if we have for index and data container is range data container that data println dc. The I is declared and not used. Okay. So let's see now. Right, exactly. Right. I was just curious how to write the output. Right, so let's go back to the README. So now we have fulfilled step 1. Yeah, we have read the JSON structure from the local drive. We have already done this. We have turned the JSON into Go struct. This struct is of type data container. Now we should attempt to populate a property of this struct with data read from a separate file, right? So we have, if we go to this struct, we should add another property, content string. So obviously, you know, when we get the data, there is no such property, so that will not be written. We can just say for, just the for that I wrote previously. Index and data is range data container dot data. So what do we get? We get the data object, which is a pointer to a data struct. So we have data dot content equals, yeah. Now we should get, what do we want? We want to get the get content by data.link, right? Because the content is not in the data.json, but the link property contains a reference to where you can find the content. So this is how I've set up the examples. So then we need this function. So let's make a function. Get content. You know, this takes a path, which is a string. It's called a link, but it's more like a path to where the file is. So, and it returns the contents as a string. Pretty much, we use the exact same read file from the ioutil util package, read file. So we just say, we just pass in the path, and we just say, you know, why does this complain? The index, we don't need it, so we just add it with underscore. So read file is going to return, as usual, a byte array with the contents of what was read, and an error if there was any. So we will just say ERR, no, contents and ERR is this. And if we have ERR, you know, log.fatal ERR.error. You know what? These files, they all have this exact same construct. This exact same. If there is an error, then log fatal. So why don't we just do a helper that just does the exact same thing? So we just say func handle error, and we just say error is of type error, right? What this should do is simply, if error is unlike nil, so if it exists, then we just simply log the fatal error.error, right? So then we just call this instead of writing this same construct everywhere. So we just say handle error ERR, right? And yeah, and here as well, handle error ERR, just to make it a bit more readable. So ERR, right? Okay. So now it's it looks more it looks much simpler. Get contents. Yeah, we also need to return the content, which is a byte array, but we want it as string, so we just need to return a string contents. Okay. So now, yeah, so now we have this construct. So if we just print now what the result of this print line of this data container. So what we did was we updated the contents property of each. As we can see, we have added another property, and we have updated with the contents of each file, right? So now if we okay, let's iterate a bit. Let's see. Let's print here. Let's print the contents of the result. Data.content. Or let's just print the whole thing. Let's see what we have. Oh, it's line 36. Oops. This was supposed to be for this one, for this error. Okay, again. We need to dereference this pointer. So if the print line. So now we go here to what do we want to do more? Let's go to the README. Populate the property of the struct with data read from a separate file. Done. Oh, and now we want to write the whole result into another file on drive. Okay, so now let's make a function that says something like write file. So what's the idea? The idea is we have read from JSON. Now we need to go back to JSON, and then we need to write the whole thing in a file. We need to turn this data container, which has been modified, we need to turn it into JSON, right? So for that we are going to use the Marshall function. So we have JSON.Marshall, and we have the data container. No, there is no second parameter, right? So this returns a byte array with the output of the marshalling and an error, of course, if there was any. So marshalling output and error is this, right? And handle error of m error. Right, and now that we have the output, we need to use this output and we need to write it to the disk. Yeah, so we need another method here that just writes the output to the disk. So what do we need? This is a byte array, so we need a write file method, func write file, which receives a contents as byte array and just writes it to the hard drive, right? So now, essentially what we do here is we just say ioutil.write file. Yeah. So we write the file name. Let's say, so the initial file was data.json. Let's say data changed.json, right? No, not single quotes. I keep forgetting that Golang is not JavaScript, so double quotes. And then we need to pass the actual data. That will be contents. And then we need the permissions. And the permissions would be 0755. So we need, let's say, permissions, write permissions. Let's use less verbosity. Write perm is, or is that file mode 0755. Write perm. Right? So yeah, and this returns an error if there was an error. So we can just say write error is this whole thing. Handle error, write error. Right, and we don't need to return anything from this function. We just need to call it here. Right, yeah, so what we expect here is basically a JSON file which contains the modified data.json objects. Yeah, so let's just run this. It should just work. Go run everything.go. We have had no error. Oh, we have somewhere a print. Let's see what we wrote. So let's format this nicely. So we have the initial data.json, which is, so let's compare them. literally. So this is the initial data.json, and this is the change data. So as we can see, right, so now we have the modified objects. Yeah, this was the exercise. Thank you very much for watching. I will just add a bunch of these exercises with increasing difficulty. If you don't know about me, I'm a .NET developer, and I'm trying to learn Golang just for the fun of it. So I will be uploading more exercises for Golang, because I think this is the best way to learn a new language. Programming is very hands-on, so this is exactly what I'm attempting now. Yeah, let me know your ideas. If you want to see something in particular, a certain exercise being addressed, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.